What's up, guys? Thanks as always for supporting the show. It would mean a lot to me if you would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any more of our videos. Also, make sure you follow us all over social media so you don't miss any of our content or show announcements. All right, welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Hope all of you guys are having a great week. This is our second new episode of the day. For those of you guys who missed it earlier today, we did a deep dive into Luka's debut with the Los Angeles Lakers against the Jazz. So scroll back into our feed and you'll find that one. In this video today, we're doing deep dives into three teams. Some early returns on Jimmy Butler with the Warriors, some early returns on Kyle Kuzma with the Milwaukee Bucks. I want to talk a lot about how that will look when Giannis is in the picture. And we haven't talked about the Philadelphia 76ers in a while, and I'm kind of annoyed and confused as to what they're trying to accomplish this season. So I want to talk about that in the tail end of the show. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. Follow me on Twitter at _JasonLT so you guys don't miss any show announcements. Don't forget about our podcast feed, wherever you get your podcasts under Hoops Tonight. It's also super helpful if you leave a rating and a review on that front. Don't forget about our new social media feeds on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, where we're releasing content throughout the year. And then last but not least, keep dropping mailbag questions in the YouTube comments so that we can keep get to them on Fridays throughout the remainder of the season. Who's scoring big in the NBA this season? You are, with all the new ways to get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. From monster slams to dishing the rock to cleaning the glass, get behind your favorite players and the prop bets you can make on DraftKings, the home of NBA player props. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something simple, like picking how many points your favorite player will have. Go to the DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. Right now, the Oklahoma City Thunder have supplanted the Celtics as the favorite on DraftKings to win the title at plus 230. The Celtics in second at plus 250. And the Los Angeles Lakers leapt all the way up to the fifth best title odds right now at plus 1,500. First time, here's something special just for you. New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $150 in bonus bets instantly. Take it to the rack with DraftKings Sportsbook. Every point counts. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code HOOPS. That's HOOPS. That's code HOOPS for new customers to get $150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. All right, let's talk some basketball. So on the Warriors front, I've been talking a lot with respect to LeBron about the concept of belief, right? Like playing championship level basketball is really hard and takes a pretty desperate commitment to work that's not even necessarily fun. It's fun in the context of winning, but playing championship basketball includes a lot of really difficult things to do on the court, a certain level of exertion that is difficult. And so if you don't actually think you're going to get rewarded for it by actually believing there's an opportunity to accomplish something, it's going to be difficult, even for the best players in the world, to really get invested in that context. About 4 games ago, early last week, it became abundantly clear that the Warriors were going to trade for somebody. I don't know if it was just the humiliation of missing out on Kevin Durant or what the deal was, but it became clear that they were going to get somebody. In the 4 games since then, since that intel came down, Steph is averaging 35 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists per game. In the 2 games since Jimmy Butler actually started playing and making life easier for Steph, he just logged back-to-back games with at least 30 points on at least 50% shooting for the first time since the Dallas and Oklahoma City wins way back in early November. I talked about how the thing I was most excited about this deal, I do think that this Warriors team has a small window to maybe capitalize on an opportunity to win a championship here, but more than anything, it went from a team that was most likely not going to play any meaningful basketball. Like without a trade, that team is probably going to lose in the play-in, just like last year. But with Jimmy Butler in the mix, they're almost certainly going to get out of that mess and get into a first-round series, which means we're going to get another opportunity to watch Steph Curry play meaningful basketball. That's what I'm excited about. Steph said after the game, we've got an opportunity to do something pretty special considering where we've been this season. And he's right. There are lineups that they can put together now that have Steph, that have Jimmy, that have Draymond, that have Jonathan Kuminga when he comes back, and it looks like he's probably going to be coming back after the All-Star break, where they have enough talent now to actually present some problems to some of these teams. And that's like, when it comes to the playoffs, so much of it comes down to like, what do we do that the other team sucks at? What do they do that we suck at? What can they capitalize on in terms of weaknesses and vice versa? And just bringing in a weapon like Jimmy Butler just puts them in a situation where they're going to be a more precarious type of matchup to deal with. And like, God, if the Warriors end up matching up with somebody like the 2 seed, if they end up getting a Memphis, that's a matchup that they're capable of winning. And how great would it be if we got to see another month of high-level playoff basketball out of Steph Curry, even with an opportunity to potentially do more? Like I said, it's not guaranteed. There could be injuries. There could be things that go wrong. They could miss the playoffs, right? But by virtue of making this deal, I find it far more likely than not that they're going to make it out of the play-in tournament and get into a legitimate playoff series. And give me Steph, Jimmy, and Draymond in a playoff series, and I think that that's going to be a fascinating couple of weeks. And if they win, we could get to see another extended playoff run from one of the greatest players in the history of the game. And that's why I'm excited. It's about belief. Like, Steph looks engaged. He doesn't say that after the game unless he believes that this team can do something. Jimmy Butler, I think, has been an amazing fit right away. I wasn't worried about it. I know there were some Warriors fans that were. I just think Jimmy's too smart of a basketball player that brings too many complementary traits to what Steph Curry does. I want to talk a little bit about middle-of-the-floor processing. This is something that I've talked a lot about on this show with respect to, like, mediocre playmakers. In the sense that when you're in the middle of the floor, you can only see, maybe 1/4 of what's happening around you. There's always like a lot of moving parts. It can get confusing in the middle of the floor. It's a spot where a lot of players struggle. And it's why, like, when it comes to the mediocre playmakers, you kind of want to clear the side and have them operate so the whole floor is in front of them just so that they have an easier time making reads. But when you have a player who knows what to do there, when you have a player that doesn't panic, it's like that famous basketball, ism, whatever you want to call it, be quick but don't hurry, right? If you can get a player that can quickly process without rushing and making mistakes in the middle of the floor, all sorts of good things can happen to your offense. An example from late first half last night against the Bucks. Steph, Jimmy, 2-man game, top of the key. Kuzma goes out with Steph. There's 2 guys on Steph. Jimmy catches in the middle of the floor. When he catches in the middle of the floor, Draymond's man steps up closer to Jimmy. And now there's a 2-on-1 that's formed with Draymond underneath the basket, Buddy Hield on the wing, with Damian Lillard kind of splitting the difference between the two. Jimmy just calmly turns and pivots and looks at Buddy Hield. When he turns and pivots and looks at Buddy Hield, there goes Dame running out to go to Buddy because he's biting on that head fake or pass fake, whatever. Just Jimmy acknowledging Buddy's presence gets Dame to jump out. Then he just pivots again and looks, and there's Draymond. Boop, bounce pass, easy layup right underneath the basket. He just looks so calm and comfortable operating there. Here's why that's important. Last night, you actually saw it in some zone looks. You got to get the ball to the middle of the zone, and the Warriors consistently got it to Jimmy there. They scored 8 points on 4 zone possessions in that game, and the Bucks just stopped trying it. You can't run a zone if they're getting 2 points per possession. But so that's part of it. But the biggest part, the most meaningful part within the playoff context is the Steph Jimmy 2-man game. When you run the Steph Jimmy 2-man game, it's going to create advantages in 3 different ways. One is like that sequence I just told you about. Jimmy sets a screen, both guys run with Steph, now Jimmy's the roll man, and it's a 4-on-3 where Draymond is absolutely an offensive threat in the dunker spot. Jimmy's a threat to score in the middle of the floor and to play make out of it. And you've got guys like Moses Moody in the corner who has just been fantastic since the Andrew Wiggins trade, since the Andrew Wiggins trade. It's given Moses Moody opportunity, and he's just been capitalizing on it as a big, rangy wing on the perimeter that can knock down threes, drive closeouts, and play defense and rebound. And he's taking advantage of his opportunity, and he's crushing. But like, you get into those 4-on-3s if they put 2 on the ball with Steph. That's where Jimmy can operate in the middle of the floor. The second thing that will happen with the Steph Jimmy 2-man game is inside position ceiling on switches. So imagine a guy's guarding Steph, 1-on-1, faced up with him. And Jimmy, this is the defender, Jimmy comes up and screens on the backside, and it triggers a switch. Okay, if they switch, Jimmy can then seal and create that over-the-top passing angle. We talked, I believe on the Sunday show, about just how dynamic Jimmy is in those inside seals at creating a passing angle and high pointing the basketball and catching it. That accomplishes the same goal, the same 4-on-3. So like if you screen for Steph and your defender runs out onto Steph, but now you've got Steph's defender sealed on your top side and you get a catch over the top, it is an identical 4-on-3. Because when you catch, all of a sudden, your defender's behind you, so you can just go right to the rim, which is going to force somebody to step up. There's your 4-on-3. Now you have a 3-on-2 on the backside once that guy steps up to you after you catch on that inside seal. So you can get 4-on-3s out of getting 2 onto Steph and just slipping out of it. You can get 4-on-3s out of inside seals on switches. Now, what about when they well execute a switch? So they switch, but the guy who's guarding Steph just quickly dives around with some good swim move or something and gets behind Jimmy. Well, who's the guard that's quick enough to guard Steph? Now he's got to guard Jimmy in the post. Wait until Jonathan Kuminga's back out there. And again, it looks like he's going to be coming back sometime shortly after the All-Star break. Jonathan Kuminga comes back. Where are the athletes at? Where are you putting your athletes? Well, if you put your best forward athlete on Jimmy, that means your second best forward athlete is now guarding Jonathan Kuminga, who's going to just be a massive athletic mismatch that you can attack. If you have the best forward athlete on Jonathan Kuminga, now you got your third best perimeter defender overall guarding Jimmy Butler. Like, that's going to put you in a bind in terms of matchups. That's going to make that Steph-Jimmy two-man game even harder to account for. But again, what unlocks all of it is anytime they put 2 on the ball, anytime they botch a switch or they get sealed topside on Jimmy, he's going to be able to operate out of the middle of the floor better than any other player on this roster could. Draymond could do all the playmaking out of that position, but he couldn't bring the scoring out of that position. There are going to be times where Jimmy catches on the roll and everyone stays home. And he's going to have to attack the rim and maybe finish in a little bit of traffic or hit something there in the middle of the floor. He can do that. He can do that at a really high rate. But I just think, I think the early returns from this have been beautiful in terms of just demonstrating the simple fact that Jimmy is not only a very complimentary athlete to Steph, but he also represents a gaping hole in the roster that was there before the deal, which is just having a really high level dribble, a guy who can dribble, shoot, and pass on the floor that just greases the wheels for everything that you try to do on offense. Before we get done with the Warriors, I wanted to just share some lineup data from the early going here. So the starting group from last night, that was Steph Curry, Jimmy Butler, Draymond Green with Buddy Hield and Moses Moody, which again, Moses Moody continues to just be fantastic with that group. They played 13 minutes. They've struggled to guard so far as a smaller group, but they have a 157 offensive rating with that group. That's really impressive. Then there's this lineup that they've been using with Jimmy Butler on the floor and Steph Curry off the floor. This is Jimmy Butler with Draymond, which I think has been interesting because Draymond has almost always been partnered with Steph, but now they're partnering him with Draymond just to kind of operate as like a guy who can feed the post and help that, like make post entry passes and help that group defensively. Jimmy Draymond, Quentin Post, Buddy Hield, and Brandon Podziemski. That group has played 9 minutes in the last 2 games. They have a 175 offensive rating and a 59 defensive rating. Again, small sample, but that's a 116 net rating. They are plus 18 points in 9 minutes. They have been blowing out the opponent in 9 minutes of action, just completely dominating. Then there's this group that they've been going to because Draymond's off the floor with Steph. So it's a group with Steph, but Jimmy and Draymond both off. It's Steph Curry with Kevon Looney, Gary Payton, Moses Moody, and Brandon Podziemski. So 3 really scrappy wings, a bruising 5, and Steph. They're plus 3 so far in 7 minutes. The defense has struggled, but they've scored the ball super well because Steph is playing so incredibly well. And again, it's been so abundantly clear to me that Steph just has a pep in his step. You could tell his life is easier now. You could tell he believes now, and he's playing his best basketball since the beginning of the season. I think it's super exciting. And one last note on the Warriors. I just wanted to shout out Quentin Post. He took a 3 on the right wing last night that put the Warriors up. I think it put him up 14, if I remember correctly, in the early fourth quarter. but it was like 19 on the shot. So he took a contested 3 on the right wing, like a hand in the face, not open, just like I'm hot. I know this thing is going in. I'm taking it. Literally before the ball even went through the net, I'm watching the game live. Quentin shoots it. I immediately look down at the scoreboard and I'm like, how much time is on the shot clock? It was 19 seconds. There were 19 seconds on the shot clock, and Quentin Post took a contested 3 on the right wing and just swished it. He's 9 for 16 from 3 in the last 3 games. He's basically snatched that job from Trayce Jackson-Davis and brings an interesting dynamic to this team with his ability to legitimately stretch the floor from the 5 spot. Really exciting stuff for the Warriors out of the early games with Jimmy Butler. On the Milwaukee Bucks. And I'm going to be talking a lot about a couple of games that they played recently. I did a full deep dive on their game with the Philadelphia 76ers the other night. I did like a 40-clip film thread on my Twitter feeds. You can go to my Twitter feed at _JasonLT and see a bunch of video examples of some of the stuff I'm going to be talking about. We have 3 games since the Kyle Kuzma trade. No Giannis, but I'm already completely sold on the fit. It's abundantly clear to me in the early returns that he is committed to playing winning basketball, which was the biggest question mark surrounding that trade. He's been in Washington. He's been playing in a bad team, some unserious basketball. How quickly will he be able to kind of like snap back into the player that he was at the end with the Lakers, which was a really good role player? And I think it's been obvious to me that he's been committed to playing winning basketball. He's grabbing rebounds at the highest rate for him since 2022. He's grabbing 8 rebounds per 36 minutes. He's really competing on defense. I thought he was great in the Philly game. He was winning battles with Embiid, like beating Embiid to contested rebounds. Again, I have videos of a lot of this stuff on my Twitter feed you guys can see. Beating Embiid to contested rebounds. He had a play where he got switched onto Embiid and fronted the post and got low and was like backing Embiid down. And when the pass came, he like battled and went up and got the pass and forced a turnover. He had this crazy recovery block on Tyrese Maxey where they were running stack pick and roll, which again is where you have a guy back screen for the roll man as you're running a ball screen. So Kuzma's man sets a great screen right on Brook Lopez, and Brook Lopez just dies on the screen. And so Tyrese Maxey's screaming downhill for a left-handed layup. Kuzma gets a little caught off guard by it, but just drop steps and jumps and blocks Tyrese Maxey off the glass. Just like a really rangy and athletic defensive play. And like, it's just so clear to me that he is a much more dynamic athlete than Chris Middleton is at this point in their careers. I am particularly excited about layering that with Giannis and Brook. Again, like everything's got to be looked at through the context of Giannis because, again, it hasn't been pretty. They're, 1-2 in the 3 games that Kuzma's played without Giannis. The net ratings haven't looked good. Kuzma's had to do a little bit more offensively where he's been inefficient. It hasn't exactly been like some sort of amazing sort of display, but I'm trying to pick out the specifics that Kyle Kuzma has been bringing and how they fit within the context of Giannis. Like Brook's been looking a little rough on defense this year. If you flank him with 2 rangy forwards like Giannis and Kyle Kuzma, you make his life easier. That group is going to be a dominant defensive rebounding group. That group is going to be able to protect the rim at an extremely high level. I think the commitment to the work from Kuz is already there. And that's the most exciting part because that was the part that was the biggest question mark coming into this deal. You guys have already seen the full Kyle Kuzma experience on offense. He's going to take some bad shots. He's going to miss a lot of them. He's at 43% from the field and 27% from 3 so far. That's kind of to be expected. But he can hit some tough ones too. He had a contested catch and shoot 3 late in the clock on the left wing against Philly where it was like a 27-footer, hand right in his face, end of the clock. Like his like kind of audacious scoring ability will rescue possessions for the Bucks. It will lead to extra points. But the most important part is even though he's inefficient, we talked about this right after the trade, watch the way he's guarded. I trimmed like a half dozen examples of this in that Twitter feed that I'm telling you guys about where Kyle Kuzma is just like showing the ball on the perimeter and dudes are flying at him and he's getting to the basket because of the way teams react to him. Teams respect him as a high-level scorer because they know he is a threat to be a high-level scorer even though he's not necessarily very efficient. He's had some decent on-ball reps. He posted Tyrese Maxey on a switch and hit a short little fadeaway over him. He's made some nice ball screen reads. He's had 6 ball screens where he's passed out of it that have led to 6 points, some nice kickouts to 3-point shooters that have gone well. The biggest thing that's been exciting to me, though, with him on offense is him as a screener. He's done a really nice job with Dame reading when to slip out of screens. There's a very specific thing you want to do when you're reading when to slip out of a screen. So, what's the purpose of a screen? The purpose of a screen is if I hit the guy that's guarding the ball handler and no one helps, my ball handler is just going to drive to the basket. That's the upside. But when you go up to set a screen and you see your man leave you to show on the ball handler, there's no purpose for the screen anymore. There's no reason to stay there a split second longer. Why? Because the only purpose for the screen is to get him free of his defender. And if he's just going to run into your defender, then there's no purpose to the screen anymore. So when you run up and you set a screen and you see your man show, get the hell out as fast as possible and make yourself available. Kuzma's been doing a brilliant job of getting out of those screens as soon as he sees his man leave and quickly making himself available. He's had finishes in traffic with the left hand. He's had multiple high-quality short roll reads. He had one where he did a head fake to the guy on the wing and then hit the corner and he was wide open. Another one where the head fake didn't go and the guy kind of stayed and he still made the right pass to the wing. He's going to be a very useful screening threat on this team. Again, I keep thinking about all of this in the context of Giannis being out there with those guys. And I just think it's going to work really well. I think it was a legitimate talent add. But most importantly, I think it alters the physical profile of this team in a real way. You go from Chris Middleton, kind of a creaky, older 6'8" guy, to a 6'9", younger athlete with longer arms who can really cover ground. That is a very, very useful player to have in this context. I always talk about how, especially when I get to the postseason, do you have a problem that you can present to teams that they cannot solve? And I actually do think the Bucks have a front line now that is physically incredibly difficult to deal with. Having Kuzma and Giannis and Brook together, you're not getting offensive rebounds and you're not getting to the rim when all those guys are together. And that's going to be a real problem for teams, especially when they run into teams in the postseason that are questionable jump shooting teams. If Milwaukee were to run into an Orlando, for instance, in a playoff series, is Orlando going to be able to make nearly enough jump shots to win that kind of series? I don't think so. That's part of the physical element that you've added to this team by bringing in Kyle Kuzma. Couple other quick ones. Gary Trent and Dame have been playing really well together lately. They've been playing a lot more together, and Gary's really gotten his three-point shot going, and they've been scoring the shit out of the ball. In the last 11 games, the Gary Trent Jr. Dame duo has a 120 offensive rating. And then lastly, I just wanted to shout out Bobby Portis. I was watching him in that Philly game, and Nick Nurse, who always has kind of an aggressive defensive philosophy, and it's been like that ever since the Toronto days, but he was basically double-teaming Bobby Portis every single time he caught the ball in the post. And he scored over double teams twice by just driving away from the double team. He made great passes out of the double team. Late in the game, Nurse had to bail on the double team and leave him one-on-one, and he just little jab step jumper knocked it down. Bobby was playing really, really well on offense in that Philly game. I just wanted to shout him out. I do want to talk a little bit about the Philadelphia 76ers, though, before we get out of here today. On the one hand, there's some stuff that I've found really fascinating watching them as of late. For instance, Tyrese Maxey is just hooping his ass off. Last 18 games for Tyrese Maxey, 32 points per game, 7 assists per game, 62% true shooting. Just incredible dribble penetration. There's this thing that happens with Tyrese Maxey where everybody in the world knows he wants to drive to the basket, and there's still absolutely nothing you can do about it. It's a legitimate, bona fide superpower, which is always the foundational trait. If you're going to be a guy who averages over 30 points per game, or I think Tyrese is averaging about 28 on the season, but he's been averaging over 32 points per game for over a month now. If you're going to average that on over 60% true shooting, you better have you have to have a legitimate superpower, something that nobody can hang with. So for like Luka and Jokic, it's size, right? With Shea, it's ball handling and shooting and his quick first step, right? With Tyrese Maxey, it's just that downhill speed. Like no one can keep him in front. There was a play where he came sprinting into a catch off of a post split, right? I think it was Embiid who caught on the post, and they ran just a typical split cut action. So like Tyrese comes off of a wide screen into a catch off of the guy from the post. Andre Jackson is another really good athlete in this league. He sprints over to get there to Tyrese because one of the big things that's happened with Tyrese over the last couple of years, he's become a great movement shooter. He can sprint into three-point shots going both directions. He can plant right, left and shoot, and then he can plant left, right, and like pivot in midair and square up and knock down the shot. Like he's an elite movement shooter now. So you've got to stay attached as he's sprinting into these catches. Andre Jackson sprints into it, gets there. Tyrese just catches and rips back to the right, gets past Andre Jackson. Brook Lopez abandons Joel Embiid and goes over to help. And Maxey just gets right into the lane and brings out this big sweeping scoop shot in the lane that goes in. And I'm like, you quite literally cannot defend that any better than he did. And he still got to the rim. And even though you contested him at the rim, he still made a difficult shot over everybody. It's just a ridiculously talented player. But him getting that movement shooting piece to help him counter ball pressure, to make it so that he can operate off the ball, while also having his dominant on-ball ability as a pull-up shooter and as a guy who can get downhill to the rim, he's just been a rare bright spot in a Sixers team that has looked lost for large portions of this year. This is where I want to talk about me not understanding what the hell they're doing. I don't think Joel Embiid's been very good when he's played. They've been getting smashed when he's on the floor as of late. A couple big things that are standing out to me, like in space, like when he has to defend in ball screens up at the level, he just looks lost. He'll jump to the wrong side of the screen and a guy will just reject the screen and go the other way. Sometimes he just gets tired and lazy and doesn't even go up to the level. He'll just like kind of recklessly pursue the basketball and just give up dribble penetration going right around him. He'll like botch rotations where he ends up in the wrong spot. He's been really, really bad on defense. He's been almost exclusively popping in pick and roll instead of like working closer to the basket. And when he's popping in pick and roll, like teams like the Bucks will just rotate to him from off ball. And like he won't make just the simple passing read. Like if they rotate to you off ball, just swing the damn ball to the next guy. He's open. It'll start the defense in rotation. He had a play against the Bucks where he picked and popped, caught at the top of the key. There was a wide open swing pass to the left. Instead, he ripped right into all the traffic and just ran over a dude and picked up an offensive foul. And here's the thing. I know Embiid's better than this. Even though Embiid has always struggled to guard in space and to guard in transition, he's better than this. Even though he can struggle in space and in transition, he's elite at the rim and he can be very impactful there. He's better than this. Even on offense, he's better than this. And so this is where I'm wondering, like, what the hell is he doing? Because I see a quote where it's like Joel Embiid believes, or a report that says Joel Embiid believes he's going to need another surgery in this offseason. Just give him the surgery. What's the point of having him play on a knee that needs another surgery while he's playing bad basketball, while the team is getting thrashed while he's on the floor? And realistically, there's not a version of this that comes together and leads to a championship this season. Get Embiid the surgery. I mean, I heard Daryl Morey say, like, we still believe that there's a championship ceiling here. I don't necessarily disagree, but it's not going to be with this version of Embiid. Get whatever he needs to get to 100% by October. Then you go through a whole camp with him and with Paul and with Tyrese all healthy, another summer to bring in another piece or two, and then you go for it. But what are you going to do? Like, wear Embiid's knee down worse by having him play on a knee that needs to be surgically repaired so that you can crawl into the playoffs in a bad seed and end up having to play an elite team in every round and just probably end up losing and doing more damage in the process? I just don't really see what the goal is here. Even when I'm watching Paul George, like a lot of people have been giving Paul George shit for not producing this year, myself included. But like he's also mostly uninvolved on offense. He's competing on defense, he's playing passing lanes, he's doing his job. But like he's mostly uninvolved on offense. And it's like, why did you pay that kind of money, $200 million, to Paul George if you weren't going to like actually make use of his talents? It just, and again, some of it's on Paul, to be clear. He needs to demand the basketball more. He needs to be more effective, but they also don't seem to be really trying to get him going either. I just wonder what the Sixers are trying to accomplish. It all seems to me like there's a lack of self-awareness here in the sense that this season is lost. You're not going to get anything done this year. There's no point in doing something that's just going to further risk your chances in seasons in the future. I will say I do like seeing Quentin Grimes there. Love Quentin Grimes. He came in and was just attacking Gary Trent, attacking Damian Lillard, just bringing that kind of like athleticism and a little bit of scoring pop. I think he's going to be a useful player for them in the long run. Again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like they don't have a chance in the future, but their chance isn't going to be this season, and they just need to read the tea leaves here and be more honest about their predicament, shut Embiid down, get him the surgery he needs, have him. This is the beauty of this kind of timeline. It's February. If you shut Embiid now and you get him Embiid down now and you get him the surgery, maybe he's recovered by July. And then he can have a full summer to get in great cardio physical shape so that he comes into the season with really low body fat, really good cardio conditioning. And then when you start to ramp him up really heavily into regular season shape, he's just ready for it. But instead, like, what are you going to do? Like, run him through it until early May when they get eliminated in the first round, and then his knee's even worse, and you get the surgery then, and you've lost 3 months on your timeline? Like, is that the alternative here? It's not like, I would get it. I would understand if Embiid was going out there and smashing everybody and your team was kicking ass when he's on the floor. That's not what's happening here. Just show some self-awareness. Shut him down. Let him get healthy for next season. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. As always, I sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting me and supporting the show. I believe tonight I'm going on with Colin Cowherd, so you'll get a little bit around the league, kind of big picture stuff with that. And then we'll be back tomorrow with some more game breakdowns, talking about some other debuts for other players after the trade deadline. I will see you guys then.